Welcome to Student Spotlight, where each month we'll be spotlighting a different graduate student from the English department at Oklahoma State. My name is Sean Kulikin, the English grad student coordinator, and I'll be your host. And today, I'm very excited to meet with our guest from the Screen Studies program, Anna Louise Wiegenstein. Anna, Louise, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Anna, Louise, the way this thing works is I ask you 5 questions and you give us 5 answers. Sound good?
That sounds good.
Awesome.
You can call me Al for the record.
Al? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Al,
I never knew
Al.
that. Okay, cool. Al. All right, so Al, question number 1. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on here at OSU?
So I am in the Screen Studies program, as you mentioned. Screen Studies covers both film and television at this point. My interest is, I guess I sort of straddle both. My particular dissertation research is on the director Baz Luhrmann, who mostly works in film, but he has done a Netflix show, so I can say that he is across both different screens. So he's an Australian director, mainly known for doing a lot of kind of very big budget spectacle sort of musicals. So he's done Moulin Rouge. He did the Romeo and Juliet from 1996 that maybe a lot of people remember from high school. And then most recently last year, he did Elvis, which he has currently been hotly promoting for months and months. So I feel like he's constantly showing up. I set a Google alert for him years ago, and it's never been busier than it is right now with him sort of on the Oscar warpath for Elvis.
Yeah. Hey, that's really great. How cool that you get to come in and study. I mean, what a great director, and such great films with so much color and energy.
So I feel like the sort of traditional critical take or sort of dismissive way that people have described his work is oh, he's all style and no substance. Particularly when he was sort of coming up in the early to mid 1990s, he was one of a number of directors that got tagged with a sort of oh, he's just an MTV director, just flashiness with nothing beneath the surface. And so my interest is kind of in actually seeing what those surface elements have to say. So rather than kind of arguing that no, there is deeper meaning, I do think there is meaning within his work, but I'm choosing to sort of investigate it through the sort of things that I think a lot of people might just sort of write off as surface elements. So for example, currently the chapter that I'm working on is all about costuming within his films, which there is any number of sort of really memorable costuming decisions that he's made throughout his career. So there's a costuming chapter, there's a chapter that I'm planning on production design, and then another chapter that I've already worked on a little bit that's about his use of ahistorical or anachronistic popular music. So that's sort of the hallmark of Moulin Rouge or The Great Gatsby, is that they use music that is not appropriate to the time that the films are set in. So yeah, I have a chapter where I kind of dig into what the sort of collapsing of history in that move kind of shows us or can tell us.
That is so cool. That is so interesting. Yeah, Moulin Rouge, there's that fantastic Elton John song. I think it's a
Mhm.
song, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought up the Gatsby too. And I was going to say, I love that director. He's very interested in literature. I mean, obviously you mentioned Romeo and Juliet,
Is.
Great Gatsby, and so on.
Yeah, he's
Very
really
cool.
interested in like big myths, like cultural,
Hmm.
mythic sort of
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So for a while there, he was working strictly in like forms of adaptation. So Moulin Rouge is like an adaptation of an opera. Romeo and Juliet, of course, is a Shakespearean play.
Mhm.
Um, and now with stuff like The Get Down, which is his Netflix series, or Elvis, he seems to have moved into more of a phase where he is sort of like making his own myths, I guess.
Mhm.
So they're not really based on source material, but they are, very much still in the same like tragic mythic mode of his earlier work.
Right. Yeah. Oh, this is great. I could keep talking, but yeah, I've heard good things about that TV show too. That the Get Down. Yeah, I have not seen it yet. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on to question number 2, if that's all right.
Mhm.
So Al, question number 2. Why did you choose to come to OSU?
I came to OSU because financially it was like the best offer that I got. Um, I was not looking to move too far away from the Midwest, which is where I'm from initially and where my parents still live. So I didn't really want to move too far away from kind of my home base. And then within the sort of like area that I was looking at, OSU's financial package was, I mean, it was far and away the best for me.
Mhm.
So yeah, no regrets.
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard that. I've heard that. I've heard that answer from some other Spotlight interviewees as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will say before I came here, I did reach out to a grad student, a screen studies grad student rather. And I kind of just, touched base with her, wrote her an email and asked her like what her sort of favorite thing about the program was. And she said something along the lines of like, I think the faculty are just like, I am constantly amazed by how smart the faculty members in the program are.
Mhm.
And so I was kind of like, oh, okay. Screen studies is like a pretty small faculty. We have 3 sort of main grad professors and then a couple sort of BAPs and adjuncts that work. But when I got here, I have to say that I totally agree with that statement now. Dr. Minnie, Dr. Yulin, and Dr. Takis have been amazing. I'm really just like incredibly astounded every semester that they manage to come up with like just the coolest classes, and they're always like so deeply well informed about their subject that yeah, she was right.
Yeah. I remember I told the professor here in San Diego that I was going to OSU. And I remember that professor said, "Oh, Oklahoma State, wait a minute, they have a good film program." I remember her saying that. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. That's great.
definitely.
Cool. Okay, I'm going to go on to question number 3. So Elle, what are some of the best things about this program that have happened to you that you'd like to share?
So I have to say, I am not particularly inclined towards, for my future anyway, towards research. I am more interested in sort of a teaching focus to my career once I graduate and move on.
Mhm.
So I would say, with that in mind, the really wonderful range of courses that I have gotten to build and teach. So I've had, of course, like experience, as many of us had, in the composition program. I got to teach technical writing, which was like a cool and like totally different sort of form of Rhet Comp. So those things were incredibly useful in terms of building like a basic skill set of like, here's how to teach sort of a entry-level freshman composition course. Technical writing is a 3,000 level class, so you're dealing with more advanced students. And so that gives you a really kind of, I think, broad and useful range when you're out on the job market. But specifically, within the Screen Studies program, there have been numerous opportunities to both TA film classes as well as to build and construct your own. So those have been really wonderful. I enjoy teaching intro to film because, you know, for many students, I think they come in there with the kind of standard mindset of like, oh, the class where we watch movies, like, great. But then by the end of the semester, you always have a couple students who are like, oh, you know, this really like opened my eyes a little bit. I watch movies in a different way now. So that is, I mean, obviously always the goal. In terms of upper level classes, I have gotten to teach race, gender, and ethnicity in American film. And that has really been wonderful and rewarding. I taught it last semester, and I had such a wonderful time with the students in that class. And additionally, I got the chance to build my own class that fit under the rubric of film genre, which basically it's like you can choose a genre of your own and kind of build a course around it. So with my own kind of interests in mind, I built a course called the Contemporary Musical, where we only watched and talked about movie and TV musicals from 2000 and forward. So yeah, like those kinds of opportunities where you get to just, you know, it's like real like freedom to kind of do what is your passion, what you're interested in has been really wonderful. So I would say teaching is my number one, and number two would be getting to do the colloquium last year. As I said, like, I don't really think that research is going to be a huge part of my career in the future, but it was really great to get to have this kind of virtual experience with students throughout the department, as well as outside of the university. We had been, you know, since the pandemic, we had all been kind of thrown online and people had moved away, and there was not really the sort of same sense of community as there had been in the previous years. And so to have this kind of event where, even though it was still all online, it was great to like have the whole sort of grad community back together again, and everybody kind of showed up to all the different panels and cheered each other on. And so yeah, that would be my sort of like biggest achievement or warmest memory in terms of like the research part of things.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Some great answers here. But by the way, I really like those classes that you were talking about. That is so cool that they let you like create your own class. That is really neat. And yes, the colloquium, I attended that as well, and you did a fantastic job on it. That was great bringing everybody back, and now we have another conference coming up at the end of April this year. So yeah, you got it.
Bigger and better.
Yeah, you got it started though, Elle. That was you. Yeah, you and your advisory board. Yeah, so great job with that. I'm going to move on to question number 4. Do you have any advice for other students and future students?
Let's see. It's advice that I continue to sort of, I guess, struggle to follow myself.
Okay.
But I guess I would say, like, look to your fellow graduate students, cohort members, as friends, colleagues, a network of support, and try to avoid slipping into a sort of like comparative mindset in terms of like, oh, they're farther along than me. Oh, you know, I'm behind, or, you know, I have many times fallen into that same kind of like trap, I guess, in terms of being like, oh, I'm not really where I feel like I should be compared to so and so. When, you know, I think you would probably agree that like this is a really like varied group of people. There's like, you know, people who have come back to school after years away. There are people who are fresh out of like a master's degree or even undergrad. People from different countries, states, all over. And so, you know, the people that you're in coursework with, or the people that you come into the program with, yeah, my biggest piece of advice is like, look to them as, you know, something positive in your life, as opposed to something that you use in your mind to like, you know, negatively compare yourself to them.
That's fantastic advice. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Last question. And this is a fun question. Not that the other ones weren't fun, but because they have been fun, but this is just kind of like fun and random. Question number 5, Al, what's one fun, unique hobby, interest, or memory you'd like to share? And this could be related to OSU and your focus, or just completely random.
I don't know that I have like a fun memory that I could share off the top of my head, but I can say that during my time here, I have developed hobbies. I think that I've tried to develop hobbies that do not involve me looking at a screen, because I do that for work one way or another most of the day, every day. So I've tried to develop a set of hobbies where I can like be away from watching TV or looking at a laptop. So I really enjoy baking. I've gotten into that sort of more frequently. And then the other thing that I've gotten into is embroidery. So yeah, just like stuff to do with your hands where you don't have to be like straining your eyes looking at anything. So yeah, those are my 2 kind of hobbies that I've developed since I've been here.
What's one of the best things you like to bake?
Ooh, I can do a pie that is, it's like a sausage pie. So it's kind of like a pot pie. So yeah, I can make them sort of look fancy on top, but most of the time I don't bother. But if company's coming over, I can pull those skills out as necessary.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you very much, Anna Louise, aka Al. This was a great interview, and thanks for being on our show. And thank you to our viewers for watching as always. And yeah, and we'll see you next month for another episode of Student Spotlight.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sean.